What is up, you guys? Welcome to the Explain It podcast. We are your host. I'm Stephen Hunt.
And I'm Ingryd Hernandez.
And boy, do we have a great show for you today. But before we even get that started, this is a very, very special week. The reason why it's such a special week is because it is none other than the Ingryd Hernandez's 33rd birthday.
Oh, you did it.
Right.
Sure.
Let's all... It's accurate. That was accurate information.
Accurate, for sure.
Let's all wish Ingryd a very, very happy birthday. So happy for you. It's going to be great. But we also have a fantastic guest coming on as well that we're so excited to introduce to you guys. You guys have heard of SubTo and seller finance and all the fun stuff that we talk about on real estate. But can you do it with things outside of real estate? Can you do it with a plane, a boat, a car, an RV? I don't know. So many different things, maybe.
I want to see people do this with a rocket now. I'm like,
yes,
you got to be able to do it with a rocket.
A SpaceX rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me buy that. I'll just take over the debt. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But without further ado, let's welcome Mike Davis to the stage.
Woo woo.
Woo woo.
What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
What's up, Mike?
What's going on, man?
We are loving life, man. How are you feeling?
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. How about y'all?
Oh, doing great.
Yeah.
Doing great. Not as good as Ingrid because it's not my birthday week, but we're doing good.
Yeah. So you both were in Boston at the same time. And is that right? You guys didn't get to meet each other?
No.
Where at, man?
Man, I was running around. You were probably running around too.
Yeah. It was a good time though.
It was a really good time. Yeah. It's hard to meet everybody at those events too. You got 400 or 500 people at these places. So, getting your hands on everybody, it's tough,
Yeah, it's definitely tough. It was a great time though, man. Met a lot of dope people. The time with Ingryd, man, I'm still high on that one.
Oh.
Yeah. So Mike was like, hey, Ingryd, I'm going to hang out with you guys. Because he was like my bodyguard. And then I had Jeff on my other side. So you have these two huge dudes like hanging out with 5'3" me. You guys, what are you, 6'7"? What are you?
Nah, I think Jeff is like 6'7" or 6'6" or something like that. I'm 6'4".
Okay.
Man,
still
that's big. To be fair, when you're looking up like this, it's hard to tell who's taller.
Yeah, for sure. So I can't tell. Can't tell.
They're both tall.
So they got to come hang out. We were with Dalwan Levy,
hey.
A huge developer out in Philadelphia. A lot of great networking, seeing opportunities. So it was very like eye-opening. Seeing some people doing some really big things.
That's really awesome.
And, you have to get yourself around people like that because they help you think bigger.
Yeah.
So
totally. Well, this is one of those things that helps people think bigger. What we're going to be talking about today, thinking differently.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really pumped on this because your boy's trying to get himself an Escalade,
Yes.
So I'm looking to find ways to get through here. But before we jump into all the fun stuff there, you got to let all the viewers know who's Mike Davis. How'd you get into what you're doing? Give us a little bit of a background on Mike Davis.
For sure, man. So Mike Davis, I've been in SubTo. If anybody doesn't know, it's the greatest real estate community on the planet. But been in SubTo for going on 3 years now. Been investing in real estate for about 4. Been in the sales space for over a decade, but found a really cool niche in side of the real estate space and the creative world space overall. And that is taking over payments or seller financing, everything that moves. So whether it's car, truck, boat, RV, small plane, off-road, heavy machinery, the whole nine, like the back-end processes of how the consumer system has been working, we understand it completely, and we've given the people back the control to know how to manipulate things so they can do things directly between each other.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
I love that.
But how did okay, so I have to believe you didn't join SubTo to SubTo vehicles, or am I wrong?
No.
Like how did you transition from joining a real estate community that does things differently,
right,
to now cars, vehicles? You're gonna have to do a rocket at some point. That's what I was saying. So
that'd be fire. I ain't gonna hold you. You might have a conversation with Elon. Fire pool is gonna be kind of loaded. I ain't gonna hold you on that. But yeah, no, I mean, like you said, like this, I think one of the things I joined about SubTo, one of the reasons I joined SubTo was not necessarily because of real estate. It's more because built a community of like-minded people that really want to solve problems and give and add to each other. And like that kind of environment just inspires a lot. And like I'm a creative at heart, you know what I'm saying? Like naturally, I'm a musician first. Like that's the world that I come from, and coming into this space, having the ability to just create and try things. I was about to try things and see what actually works. Coming in, learning how you can really manipulate anything with a property, and then learning you can do it on businesses. Like, wow, why would I do anything else traditionally? What else does it work with? And then, you know, closing a few deals in the process, joining SubTo, I made my money back immediately, and it made a lot more sense then with a lot of real estate deals. But I was cash rich and credit poor, so it was an organic story. And at that time, I just needed a vehicle, and I didn't want to go to a dealership knowing that they were going to tax me crazy. So I'm like, I know you can do it with cars, and Pace always talks about the F-150 story. That's how he makes it super easy for us to understand that you can do this with a house. Starts with a car. So he also ended up getting with Sean St. Clair and creating some documents. As Pace always goes and gives. He had Sean St. Clair draft up a whole set of documents for vehicles, dropped them in the group, never explained anything about it. So it was like, all right, cool. Well, shoot. I mean, I guess he just gave the ball to everybody to just kind of see what happens. But at that time, it was perfect timing. And I ended up, you know, dissecting the documents, calling around the different DMVs, calling around the insurance agents, seeing how this stuff is actually legit. Like, can it work? And long story short, I got like mixed, like hot, cold, lukewarm kind of responses from people. It's like, yeah, I've seen people do it, but you got to do it this way or that way. And even the folks at the DMV would give me certain game on like how you would have to, you know, kind of make it work. So to cut a long story short, I tried it and I failed searching for opportunities. And I ended up having to go to a dealership. And probably 3 days later, I went to a meetup down in, I think it was Orange County, California at that time with my guy, Richard Knowles. Shout out to you, bro. But
we love Richard.
Love him, man. But yeah, so we ended up having a conversation after the meeting, telling him about the SubTo car docs. I was like, bro, like we can do this with cars, whatever the case is. And he was like, yo, why don't you just try Turo groups? Because I told him I couldn't find any opportunities. He said, try Turo groups. Because the car market shifted, there's a lot of people trying to get rid of them.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, oh my gosh, if I just did that up front, I immediately took his advice, went back home, made a post in a Turo group, just randomly, this is a side thing, and it went viral. And I was like, holy crap, this is not just my problem, this is everybody's problem. All of these Turos were willing to get rid of their cars and let somebody take over their payments. And I closed a couple of them, went to the buyer pool and did the same thing. A whole lot of people wanted to take over payments. So I was like, okay, this is a real problem. I started off as a side hustle, just started helping a few people out, going through a few things, and then having to deal with the real things like the insurance process and how the DMV process works, how you deal with registration, how you deal with all of that stuff to make it legit. Then it started working, and everybody was just like, yo, this actually is a genius idea. So then it just organically grew. More people know about it, and it was like, okay, cool. It's another revenue stream. That's how it kind of organically kind of ran into it.
That's so good. Now, is that your primary lead source right now still, is going after Turo groups and that whole world? Or
these leads, it's expanded and ballooned. There's leads all over the doggone place, bro. Like so many different places. I mean, even inside of our communities, but even just basic stuff like Facebook Marketplace, you can go outside, you can talk to your friends and family. We're gonna end up, because we do have a platform, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, but we're gonna end up running ads and things like that to make it so that we connect. I think there's a statistic, it's like a third of the country of the United States are like behind or almost behind on car payments. There's plenty of people with this problem. Let alone there's plenty of vehicles that are just sitting around in somebody's driveway or got the tarp over it and they ain't doing nothing with it. They want to sell it, but they're stingy on the price and they don't know how to sell the finances. So these leads are all over the place.
You win me over when you bring data points. You know what I'm saying? Like, absolutely. And that's like your marketplace, right? Now you reverse engineer that and be like, where are these people hanging out? What bar are they at? So, yeah, that's so fantastic. And so basically back to reinforce and reiterate what you're saying is like you were looking for problems to solve. And I would say that would be the creed for any good entrepreneur, because once you start, running a business and running a team, a lot of the fundamentals are the same. Maybe your vehicle, pun intended, is slightly different, but at the end of the day, you're solving someone's problem. Yeah. So I love that. I love that so much.
So where are you going to find then at that point your buyers for these cars? Are you listing them just on Craigslist? Are you just going to Facebook groups and saying, hey, you guys can take over this payment for, $997 a month and you can get this new Escalade? What's it look like for you on that side? Like, is that easier to find a buyer for those once you've found the actual opportunity, or is it harder to find the buyer once you have I'm just curious what this whole breakdown looks like.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good question too. So everybody wants these cars, right? But the pool that you're after, you always want to make sure you still find quality people. I always tell sellers, anytime that a seller comes to me and says, hey, Mike, go find me a buyer. The principle is it's risky naturally, right? Thing moves around. It's not like a piece of real estate where you know where it's at all the time. So you always want to find a quality kind of person. You don't want to go after somebody who can't qualify. You can deal with straw purchases and things like that. You want to find somebody who could qualify, just doesn't want to. So that kind of buyer pool is smaller than just everybody. So some of it, like the beauty that we have, especially in our community, is that one, a lot of us have a lot to lose. We worry about our reputations. We worry about doing the right thing. And there's a lot of integrity basis in there. And there's a whole slew of us that are there. So we usually start inside of the communities first, but then we'll go out and venture into the same type of classes of people, whether they're business owners or certain different fields, doctors, lawyers, things like that. We'll find the folks that it makes sense to actually sell to, and then we'll continue and, kind of gauge the risk based on that, because we can always find buyers. It's just a matter of who and where to find the best people.
What are some of the criteria that you look for so that you can say, like, for example, on the property management side of things, there's a lot of laws that negate what you can create criteria around, for fair housing laws and things like that.
Yeah.
What's your criteria on what you would count as a good buyer? And are there any sort of like fair car selling laws that you have to be aware of? I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question too. And what I do say is most of our stuff is more common sense and just kind of mirrors what the normal car industry is, which is like, we're always going to look at financials. We're going to look at, income over a certain period of time. It has to average out to at least 6.5 times the monthly payment of the bill, which that's just basic affordability. Then we'll look at proof of funds. We will look at, validity to drive. We'll look at payment history through credit reports and things like that. We don't necessarily run anybody's credit, but anybody can just come on and give a report just so we know exactly what your payment history is looking like. Depending on what you have, that's where we start first. Depending on the client, we may have to go a little bit deeper and go into like references or social proof or even background checks, things like that. Got to make sure that you're still a good candidate at the end of the day. None of this stuff affects your credit or your DTI. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue for most people. And then it comes into a space of just, all right, cool. You're a good quality candidate. We'll usually interview them as well for buyers. And then we'll end up actually having the sellers meet them directly. So on Zoom calls and things like that, where everything is transparent, super open, everybody know everybody, nobody hide nothing. And then at that point, we create a connection and you can build off of that from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Mike, I don't remember if I told you this, but the very first vehicle I ever bought,
You did.
the very first vehicle I ever had, I bought SubTo and I didn't know.
Really? That's so funny.
So my roommate at the time, my mom moved to Chandler and I was going to Scottsdale Community College. So I had to rent a room in their house in Tempe so that I could have a shorter drive, but I also needed a car.
Yeah.
And they had a 1989 Toyota Camry beige with some brown, like some brownish beige cars. And my seatbelt was this.
The electric seatbelt.
The only one I had to do was put my lap seatbelt on. But
that's so funny. Wow.
But that was my car, guys. That's how old I am. Tomorrow is my birthday, but that's how old I am. That was my first car, and it was manual. But
you can drive stick.
I can drive stick.
Look at you.
Yeah, my first and my third car were they're so much fun. So
it's
like
so much fun.
My doesn't make sense car that I would love to have is like a Jeep Wrangler, big boxy with big tires, and it has to be stick. But I know I've seen a couple come through sellerfinance.io, and that's why I stay away, because I know if I look for it on that damn platform, I'm going to find it.
With a Jeep, you have to get it stick.
Yes, I think
you
that's
have
the fun.
to.
That's the fun. Yeah,
I agree.
But anyways, yeah, my my friend's parents, they're like, we don't want to pay the $179 a month for this car. We're just going to sell it. And I was like, can I pay the $179 and then I will drive it and I will own it?
Was that a crazy payment back then though?
No, I think it was a reasonable. I was 18 years old paying my way through college and paying that car.
Dang.
I was a bartender.
Dang.
Yeah.
Working for those tips. All right.
So, how many? So you've bought at least one vehicle this way, right? Have you bought any more? Like you bought him this way?
Not yet. I'm gonna buy another one. I'm really picky. I'm looking for like a super unicorn deal, as a daily driver. But past that, the funny thing is, I've been approached by a few people that's like, "Yo, why don't you just buy a bunch of these and make a rental?" And I'm like, I could do that. I personally don't want to be honest. I'd rather just facilitate the deals. We work with a lot of people who have private rentals and stuff like that. Like, cool, I'll give you cars. But I'm looking for a unicorn deal, like a super unicorn.
What's a unicorn deal in this world?
Same thing like a house, bro. 0% down. I mean, 0% interest, 0 down. You know what I'm saying? And the lowest possible, right? Like, that's the kind of unicorn deal. And it's crazy, too, because there's been some that are very, very good and I've almost jumped on. And I was like, nah, you know what? I ain't going to do that. I know this better. So, I don't know. Once you get behind the curtain, you start to realize you're like, all right, I'll wait.
Yeah.
You know,
how often? So I'm curious what this looks like too. With the types of vehicles that you're running into, that people are most open-minded to with this kind of stuff, is it usually people that went out and got the Escalades, the Audis, the really nice cars, and then they were like, shit, like I totally overstretched myself on this. Like, to me, I would think that's the first thing that comes to my mind is people that bought cars that just had payments that were too high for them. And it was really fast to just basically crumble on them. Is that kind of what the case is?
Nah. So it's not just that. It's every bit of spectrum, bro. From like economy cars to like older cars to exotics to like your mid-tier to your luxury brand, like whatever the case. It doesn't have to be old one. It had to be a new one. Like we've seen the spectrum in its entirety. We've seen people who had just bought a car 3 months ago and turn around and sell it with good payments. We've seen people who put huge stuff down to have plenty of equity and still want to make more money and then sell it this way. We've seen folks that like, I mean, I think the highest car I've done is a Bentley Bentayga so far.
A what?
A Bentley Bentayga.
Oh, Bentley.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're from Baltimore.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can't hear. I can't. My ears are becoming super white. My bad. I can't.
Oh shit! Oh, my bad. I be talking crazy sometimes. That's what I try. But yeah, like that's from the high end to, and the crazy thing with that one, the dude he owed like 110,000 on it. It was worth about like 120, but he ended up selling it for 150.
What?
Right.
Wow. And that was because he was willing to do the payment stuff.
Right. Exactly.
Wow. That's very much like the SubTo way, where it's like you're gonna the F-150 story. What was it like? He added the term "will take payments," and then ended up. And then how much more did he sell his F-150 for than what he was originally trying to do?
Yeah, probably like $4,000 or $5,000 more, something like that.
Yeah.
Nothing was like 300,000 miles on it.
That's the same, bro. But I mean, like all it is baking in the financing up front. You know what I mean? So
you're making that spread in between then. So every single time you go find a deal and you go place that deal, essentially, you're basically adding on to this like portfolio, like notes when it comes to doing real estate and all that kind of stuff. I know it's like essentially the same, but like I'm trying to make sure my brain like is processing all these things the same too.
Yeah. So I mean, as a buyer, like a buyer would do that, right? So for me, my business model isn't keeping any parts of the notes because it's too much hassle with things that move. But for a buyer, the buyer will come in and they'll get a spread. They'll get their spread and monthly payments and things like that. They'll get a down payment, monthly payments, depending on the deal. Because some deals there's no down payment involved just because it doesn't require one. But for us, like what we do, we'll get fees in between as far as TCing and connecting the deals, connecting everybody, similar to a wholesale deal. But because we don't necessarily broker or like stop, we actually introduce folks. We call it a connection fee. So it's more facilitation.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. So to clarify, Mike, you are the facilitator of the transaction and you're actually the transaction coordinator. So you help with the paperwork, the vetting of the buyer, that sort of thing. And that's why you get paid, because you're going to actually put it together. And Dazai wants to sell her cargo van. So if somebody wants to sell their vehicle, do they still go to sellerfinance.io to sell their vehicle?
Yes, absolutely. So you can go to sellerfinance.io, create a free account. You can create an offer, and then what will happen once you input all that information, whatever your last monthly statement is, or you'll schedule a call with the Top Wheels team. So Top Wheels is my company, sellerfinance.io. I own my partner, Vitali. We designed and built a website for you all. You'll be able to get on a Zoom call with our team. We'll evaluate the deal, come up with a game plan to get it sold to a very qualified buyer and help you value it.
Yeah, the top team, the take over your payments team.
This is all such good marketing.
Yeah.
Like this is all like A1. This is great shit.
100%.
Yeah.
So what are some objections that like sellers are concerned about that you help mitigate for them? Because I have my own wild story of a current experience with Mr. Marlon Johnson. He bought his RV SubTo. Great deal. Super awesome. Actually, when he bought it, my husband was like, why didn't we buy it? And I was like, good point. But it was an RV with bunk beds and plenty of sleep. I think he took it from San Diego to New York to raise money to fight child trafficking or human trafficking, excuse me, and raised over $100,000. So it was an amazing story. But recently, we borrowed it for New Year's. Didn't know the tags were expired.
Oh, so y'all got it impound. Okay.
It got towed. And then despite all the paperwork, like I shit you not, we were at that, I say the collective we. Mostly it was my husband and Marlon who were there the most. That lady did not want to see me. I don't play nice. She like I made her cry, just FYI.
Oh, good.
She desereved it.
That's what you got to do. That's why I said good. I'm like, if you made her cry, then she deserved it because I know you. You're 100%. Not a mean person.
I'm not. I'm a justice person. But I was like, yo, every time we've been in here, you've asked for a different piece of paper. We've facilitated and brought that paper. Like at this point, I'm going to call my lawyer. Like, and then she's like, anyways, I was called for trespassing, by the way.
And so Ingryd in cuffs.
Yeah.
Kicking and screaming.
Oh no, the cops came, they became my best friends. I was like, yeah, follow me on Instagram.
Yeah.
How we were telling them
we have Mike Davis coming on next week.
I know, I really should be. Officer Perry, check this out. Watch Mike Davis. But like literally, we were explaining to them how we bought it, and I say we, the collective we, because Marlon's my brother. But like, they were giving such a hard time. They eventually so here's the really pivotal things about what you have said already, Mike, which is it's really, really important that the seller and the buyer meet and understand that they're in this together. And because they did that as a part of this experience with Marlon and Andrew, who were technically the buyers of the RV, they were able to lean on the sellers quite a bit to help them make this work out. And that was what's really important. By the way, the sellers really needed Marlon, and right, like they needed somebody to take over those payments. They were going overseas, like this was a burden on them, so Marlon was solving a problem for them. So it wasn't like as if any sort of taking advantage of anything. No. But then because the registration didn't get done, like that's really where all the trouble came from. Had the registration been done, even if it got towed, because we were trying to figure out
to get it out.
Totally. And so, Marlon learned a strong lesson.
Yeah, that's funny too, because I didn't even know like we was really literally that intertwined with this situation, because we did that deal, and I helped Marlon. I sent him a whole bunch of stuff to add so we could get it out. It is a lot harder when the registration expires and it's like you got to transfer it to a different state, but that's all specific stuff.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even realize that you were connected, and it was with y'all that y'all had.
I got a connector fee. So when Marlon bought it, I got paid a fee for bringing the buyer. And I wasn't even trying. Guys, I wasn't even trying. This is how much money there is out there. Like I was just having this conversation with my brother-in-law. I go, look, you don't need to learn about real estate. If you got people who got money, you bring them to me. I know real estate, and I will make sure you are taken care of.
Yep.
So like really, it's about who, not how. if you don't have the time for the how. Like I had the time for the how, you had time for the how. And this is where someone like you, Mike, who has spent a lot of the time on the how to solve problems. That's why you deserve to get paid how you get paid. But me is like, I got a connector fee for bringing Marla.
Yeah. Just bring me to lead now at this point in time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have the how figured out.
For sure.
That's so good.
That's so dope. Because he just got it out, like I think a couple days ago or something like that, right?
Yes, very much. Yes, for sure.
No, that's funny.
It
was like the tow fees were almost like $1,000. But one of the things that we found out, which is very similar to the same challenges in real estate. So one of the things you brought up, Mike, was that the vehicle was registered last in Georgia. And when you have vehicle registrations, there's a local database and then there's a national database. So when this past seller before Marlon bought it, they hadn't actually updated the registration. So that added more time too. So like the old seller still wasn't in the database nationally. So that caused problems. And then we also found out that Georgia is a wet signature state. Yeah. So if you're going to do proof of or power of attorneys, any durable power of attorney sort of things, which is required for something like a SubTo vehicle, Georgia requires that to be
wet signature.
And that wasn't up to date because I'm not trying to air people's like stuff, but there was just multiple people involved, and so you want to make sure that you have the most up to date information that's correct when it comes to your house or your SubTo vehicle.
Would it be fair to say the easiest way to avoid all of this headache is maybe just go through Mike Davis right from the start and have him help out with the transaction?
Well, that'll definitely take care of 90% of the problem. 10% of this was, dude, keep your registration up to date.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah.
So when it comes to doing all of this, I'm curious what some of the also risks would be. Like obviously when it comes to doing a SubTo on a house, you have due on sale, you have some of these things that come up in that way. Are we at the same exact situation when it comes to vehicles as well?
Yeah, not necessarily for due on sale. Like just pay the bill and you'll be fine. They don't necessarily care too much. Leases are different because leases there are like very, very strict on certain things. So you got to like kind of read your paperwork to know what you can do to transfer. But if it's a regular loan, most banks really don't care. What I will say is that most of the questions that people do ask, because I think you guys alluded to a little bit earlier, but some of the main concerns that sellers will have or objections is the simple common sense stuff. Like what happens if the dude stops paying? Or like what happens if they get into an accident and hurt somebody? How do you deal with insurance? Like how's insurance set up? What happens with the DMV and tags if somebody gets a ticket? Who pays for that? Like all of these things have very simple, straightforward answers. In terms of like, let's say, somebody does stop paying or whatever they have you, take the car back. It's the same thing that your lender would do if you stop paying, right? So they're going to know where it is. Most of the time, they're just going to use the street system to scan plates and everything like that, or your latest address. But for you as a seller, what I always recommend for every seller doing this kind of deal is put a tracker and a kill switch in the vehicle. That way you know exactly where it's at. You can shut it off if they stop paying. 5 days, consider late. Shut it off. The default terms are super strict in these kind of deals too, to protect you from having hits on your credit as a seller. So 15 days is automatic breach. Most lenders are going to give you the 30, 60, 90-day rule. With this kind of situation, you make it much more strict. And then you have the proper paperwork that's set up. You got to make sure that it's set up right. You got to make sure that any debts that you have is witnessed. All that stuff we can help you take care of. But then the third thing is just choosing the right kind of buyer. So same thing that you do with a house. The risk is if I sell my house SubTo to somebody, do I know who they are and will they default? For us as buyers, we need to show competency. We need to show our commitment to the deal. And we got to show proof of funds and everything like that we can handle it, right? As well as an exit strategy. You don't want to get an investment that you're not going to make an issue for the seller, that they have to hold the note and you get the title. It's basically the same thing with a car. You find a great buyer or a great tenant, if you will, they're going to take care of it. You ain't going to have no issues. But if you find a bad one, you kind of get the picture. So it's like a 3-screen process. And as long as you did it up front, that'll take care of 90% of any of the issues. Like if there's an accident that comes up, somebody that's responsible enough, go ahead and make the claim. They'll go ahead and notify you of whatever's going on, keep the communication lines open and handle what need to be handled. If it gets totaled out and there's there's no gap or anything left, they're going to pay the rest of the bill. That's just what it is. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, that's still an obligation. And you, as a seller, if you are in this situation, if you wouldn't do that to your lender because you care about, one, doing the right thing, and then two, just not having your credit thing, find somebody who think like you. And you deal with that kind of relationship, pass your payments off, you'll be fine.
Yeah. That's interesting. So it sounds actually even less riskier than a car than a house.
Yeah, truly.
To be honest with you. But okay, so you said a kill switch, and I have a question about that.
Mhm.
So could they take the kill switch out?
Technically, but there's a breach of contract, and if you do it well enough, they won't be able to find it. So like a kill switch can be wired into the battery, it can be hidden, within the electronics of a vehicle. If somebody is going to go through the lengths of taking it out, we didn't do the first part right. You know what I'm saying? Which is like screening this person who we dealing with. All right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you can't control no criminal or somebody just want to do some dumb shit. Like at the end of the day, people gonna people. But
yeah,
if you find yourself, getting your pool of the right kind of candidates down, then you can mitigate a lot of that stupid shit.
People gonna peep.
People going peep.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I love that. Okay, that's cool. So I'm sure one of the areas that people get hung up on is what people get hung up on. Investors going to invest. No, that didn't make sense. No.
Girl, you trying.
No. No. So in SubTo, investors always get hung up on the insurance piece. So could you put some clarity around when you're buying a car SubTo, what are some of the hangups? I'm assuming insurance being one of them that people need maybe some clarity around so that they could not worry about whether or not they're covered.
Yep. Cool. So with insurance, it's pretty straightforward. Usually with a seller, if they're selling, they already have insurance active. The lender's going to shit on them if they don't have it active. If you're selling your car, let's say SubTo, not seller finance, SubTo in a vehicle, the buyer's going to get a primary policy too. Now, what they'll get a policy, they have to get full comp collision. They have to add the seller to the policy and then add the seller's lender part of the policy. The lender just needs money. They need to be insured. They don't really care who's primary on it. But they've also given the registered ownership to whoever they signed their original lending agreement with. As long as they're part of that policy, they don't really care. So a buyer can go ahead and get insurance, add the seller's lender. Similar to how we do with a house, but the main portion is through verification. As long as it's set up right, you got adequate limits. Send that verification to the lender. And then if the seller decides to cancel their policy, the lender already knows that there's active insurance. There might be a little bit of period of overlap. Then they go ahead and drop theirs off. And if there's a claim that ends up coming up, the buyer now is going to be the primary source. They'll go ahead and make the claim. The insurance company will typically contact the seller as well, just to let them know what's going on. And if there's a payout, the lender gets paid first. If there's anything extra, that goes to the buyer.
That makes sense.
Nice.
Okay.
Now, here's another thing that always in my mind seems to be an issue. And I only say this because I did this one time. I did do almost like a novation. It was more of like a SubTo seller finance on a manufactured home that was in a 55 plus community. So it was technically personal property, not real property. And the big thing that I was scared of, I actually did not do this transaction at all. Angel and her dad ran the entire transaction because I was on a bachelor trip. And I was like, you guys are going to have to figure this out. And they did. Somehow they did. We found some guy to write up a contract for us, all that kind of stuff. But one of the big things that came to my mind was, okay, it's hard enough for me right now to go to my title reps when it comes to me doing a creative finance deal to say, hey, let's transact this creatively. Now I envision myself going to the DMV and trying to talk to the DMV reps about transferring title creatively. And I'm like, it's like talking to a wall. I feel like I wouldn't be able to get anywhere about anything. Like they wouldn't even know the first 3 words I was saying. Is that
he has no idea what SubTo is. Like they're not gonna say, "Oh, I'm here to register the SubTo vehicle." They're like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah, yeah, fraud. Get him out of here.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that we've pioneered with our company, Top Wheels, and why we created the top method to work this way. So we have now at this point we've got scripts, we've got a process. So any buyer can walk into a DMV confidently and walk out with the tags with no issues or anything like that. So a lot of it, you have to understand what you're saying to the DMV. You know what I'm saying? Like realistically, you're going to be going there. You're transferring registration using a power of attorney. There's a process to it, and there's a stack of paper that you're going to need to get set up. But you go in there, walk in with the right kind of confidence and the right kind of understanding as to what's happening, so it can be clearly relayed to them. They ain't gonna have no excuse. And it's an easy call. You go get the tags, and you have everything updated to the new state. So that's not an issue.
Oh, I love that. That's good stuff right there.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, I feel like doing SubTo on a vehicle is actually easier than doing a SubTo on a house.
Yeah.
But I understand, because there's like, because for when you're doing MVD stuff, right? Like, you don't necessarily have title insurance, right? So there isn't like a third party responsible for the transferring rights from one to the next, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, where in real estate, there's title insurance, and like, if you mess that up as a title company, like, you're out big bucks if you don't do it right.
Damn.
So I feel like SubToing a car is way easier because you don't have those restrictions.
Yeah.
And it's mobile, so it's like you can't move a house.
The whole car industry in general, I feel like, is so lax about things.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I mean? Like, there's also a lot of shady shit that happens in the car industry.
That's fact. That's fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Okay.
Different worlds. They're definitely different worlds. It's like with real estate, especially with like you said, title insurance, that you gotta deal with like HOA stuff that has to be transferred over. You gotta get all the it's different. And what I would say, because I think it'd be funny talking to real estate investors when you try to get them to think cars, because it's like they're overcomplicated because of how much stuff you have to do with a house. It's like with a car, is really not that complicated. It is a completely different process that you have to learn, but it's not that complicated.
Which brings me to a mobile home that we maybe could still flip.
Maybe, if she's still alive. We gotta. Oh, I'm sorry, but she was old.
So,
oh no,
Mike, I remember reaching out to you because we had a sweet old lady, and actually, her and her friend, they lived together in this mobile. They're a hoot. Like, we were there, like, cracking up, me and Steven. So, we worked with a really great senior community out in East Mesa, and they sent us to this lady's home, which, by the way, why am I always getting in trouble with you? Because we were almost run out of that place, because when you go to some 55 plus communities, if you're an outsider, like, they don't want you there.
They will literally run you out. Like, they will come track your ass down and be like, go on, get out of here.
Yeah. Like, we had
this literally happened.
So we get to her house because I was trying to introduce myself to the front office so they knew, like, who I was in case we bought this vehicle, right? I didn't want people to not know who I was, but I did it the wrong way. I hadn't gotten completely trained by my friend Steven yet. And like, I should have never said I was an investor, ever.
I have 5 rules, and the first 2 are you are not an investor. I always make them like the back-to-back rules.
Yeah.
That was just so funny though, the way that it all played out.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you got to see firsthand why we're not investors.
Absolutely. Yeah. It taught you the lesson of why you don't say that when you go to these communities. And so Steven is meeting me there. We both drive to her manufactured home. We get there. The lady's on the phone, and the front office is telling her, she's on speaker, and she's like, tell them to get out of there. They don't belong here. They can't be talking to you. And like, the lady was like, yes, they can. Like, they can talk to us. Yeah. It was like really not nice.
They were really mean. They were like, get them out. They started driving by in their golf carts.
Yeah.
Like, they were pissed.
But I called you right after that, Mike, because I was like, we think there's some room here to make money. And in fact, like, we're planning on using their own, like, the manufactured home communities, like, resources, their own sales agents and stuff like that. But it was really tough.
Yeah. It is. They're really, really tough though. Those people, like, the only reason why I was able to get it to happen, I think truly the first time, is because the agent that was going to sell the house, because you have to use their people. That's like the only way to transact there.
Yeah.
The agent that I was working with there was like, I'll keep this on the wraps so that way I can still sell it.
Yeah.
And so that's why we had to end up doing a novation, because we kept technically the seller on title.
Yeah.
In that way.
Oh, that's right. So so is there they figured it out. So what would be a novation process? Have you done something like that with people who are trying to flip, like, manufactured homes, Mike?
No, I haven't. I haven't even really researched that. That's probably something that could be researched. The thing about mobile homes is, if it's attached, it's likely going to go through a title company. If it's not attached, or it's like literally mobile, then it will go through the DMV And like that's a clear distinction as to how it's going to be treated up front to start. Everything else from there, like as far as anything that's attached or like manufactured, I haven't done. But I've SubTo'd a manufactured home. It was probably like a couple years ago actually. But it was attached. Like it still had to go through title and everything like that. So I don't know.
These are attached, but it's leased land. So same thing ends up as soon as it's on leased land, you technically don't own the land that it's on. So it's technically not attached, even though it's physically attached.
Yeah. Like ain't nobody moving this thing. Like there's just it's too much trouble. But yeah, like there was another appointment I went on and the lady was like, it's mine. And it's like, here's the title, the actual title, because she's paid it off. And it was a DMV title.
Was this the lady that got us the water with
the DMV title? Yeah.
No, that she was great. That's a different mobile home. I went to one where a lady had no food.
Oh,
so
you brought her food.
I went to the grocery store. I bought her food, and then we went back to her house, and like I stacked her for good 2 weeks. And then she called me and told me, I'm not going to sell to you. I was like, oh man, I got played. So.
Hey man, shoot, we fed somebody for a couple of weeks. That's crazy. She ain't had no food. That's weird.
Yeah,
she was a hustler. That's what it was. She's like, I'm so hungry.
If God is judging what happened, I'm on the good side. So it's all good. Like it's all good.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah, right on. So, what is your goals this year with your sellerfinance.io? Like what do you see as like the big vision on this platform that people can go find their vehicles, SubTo or seller finance?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest things this year, we will be we have a 2.0 version that's coming out. So right now, if you guys go to sellerfinance.io, you guys will see our 1.0 version. You can handle transactions there. We do have vehicles that are available. Sellers have already said, find somebody. I'm cool with somebody taking over my payments. If you guys want to buy, you can go there, book an appointment, and we'll get you taken care of. If you are a seller and you are looking to get rid of your car, or like however it is, whether you got payments, you don't got payments, you can list it on there for free. We'll go through the process, making sure that you're taken care of, and you get somebody qualified to take over your payments. I think one of the biggest things that we're going to do this year, we have a 2.0 version that is going to basically be the hub for all of the education on how to do this process, as well as more resources to automate this process a lot faster. We are integrating a bit of AI technology in it to super streamline this process, as well as we'll be running like a number of ads and things like that, creating more space and more awareness so that the selection of vehicles is going to vastly increase. I think our big goal and our big vision for this is not just going to be for vehicles. Sellerfinance.io is going to be the creative finance hub, and it's a marketplace for any type of creative finance transaction. That's going to be anything vehicle related, anything business related, and anything real estate related on a consumer level. So if you have a property that you'll be wanting to sell and you're learning more about creative finance because Pace has made it so accessible for everybody, you can list your property on sellerfinance.io for whatever terms that you want. Same thing with the business. Just making it a lot easier. That's the big goal for sellerfinance.io, and we're doing it in phases. We're starting with the vehicles since it's one of the most obscure types of transactions, making it very easy for everybody to jump in.
Dang.
Wow.
Okay, so I have the website up, Mike, and showing it to everybody, and it's so pretty. Like
so
pictures are so important, and it like you've done a good job here.
I appreciate it. Shout out to you, Vitaly, if you're watching.
Yeah. So how close are okay? I have to ask this question because something that Pace and I launched this like a week ago is to focus on these non-cash flowing properties. And part of that is that we have to be able, because you said the consumer level, like trying to create a marketplace where we can post these opportunities for the typical homestead buyer, not the investor.
Right.
Yeah. So how close are you? Because I need a landing page.
For sure. I can say in the 2.0 version that the real estate side may not necessarily be fully live and functional. What I would say is we're probably about a cool 3 to 4. I'll probably say 3 to 5 months out from making the real estate side live. But we're actively working on it. We're trying to cut that time down too.
Yeah.
This is so good. Like this looks like
Yeah,
So
legit.
good. So
Yeah.
legit. So out
For
of
sure.
curiosity, when it comes to a marketing perspective, are you trying to partner up with the car influencers of the world when it comes to like Doug DeMuro on YouTube, all those types of people to be able to start affiliating this? Because I know they push so much to their platforms where you can go buy and sell cars. However, this is such a different, unique way of it being done as well, or integrating this into their own platform as well.
Yep, that's definitely in the plans. Like dealing with influencers, affiliates, folks that can,
Influencers.
kind of bring this kind of strategy out to their audiences and bring more people in so they can go ahead and dive in. That's definitely on the bingo card for 2025 for sure.
Oh, it's so good. This is like an only matter of time is the way that I look at this.
Yeah.
Like it's only a matter of time before something like this just fully takes off.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. All right, so Tyler Cavan, who's one of my clients, actually, shout out to Tyler. I love that he's on the show. He wants to know, do you hunt for specific cars for a finder's fee as well? Is that something else, another service that you provide?
Yeah, right now we're only doing that for certain caliber vehicles. We get requests for cars all day, every day, but a lot of times it's just not worth the effort. For right now, we haven't spread out that leg. We will as time goes on, but for right now, it has to be under a certain threshold. So if you do have a particular request, then I think either Julie or Amy, one of our top tier TCs, is in the chat. They can help connect with you so that whatever you're requesting, we can at least kind of break it down and see if we can work it out for you.
Right on. That's so cool. Wait, didn't you help Andrew Arriaga, who's also in the comments and in our YouTube? Didn't you help him get a SubTo car too?
Yeah.
That's what. So
That's good.
how many SubTo transactions have you guys done up to this point? And I mean, it's still fairly new for you guys.
Yeah, I think at this point we're probably closing in on like 130 or something like that.
Wow.
That's so good.
That's so wild. That's so wild. Wow.
In such a short period of time too. That's why I'm like, this is only a matter of time before this is like, oh yeah, we do thousands of transactions a year.
It's a matter of time, dog. Definitely a matter of time.
That's a matter of time.
This is so great. Okay, so what are you liking on this website so far?
Okay, the layout's fantastic. I love that we have the personal, commercial, motorcycles all the way at the top. Like it feels like a very like established auto marketplace.
Yeah,
that's what I love about it.
And did you start there, Mike, when you started doing this? Because I even love that you said listed by Top Wheels, because I feel like you have that vision that other people are going to want to do what you do, and you want to give them
it's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Make it a space where you can come in and you can use this marketplace to run your business out of. So
yes,
other companies were definitely building it with other people in mind, that they can bring their entire inventory, their entire listings, like all that kind of stuff. So we definitely got that in mind.
I like this Bronco.
Yeah.
Look at. I'm clicking through it. The way the pop-ups come up make a lot of sense.
It's not showing on our side because because it went to a different tab.
Sorry, share this tab instead. My B. Thank you for. I was watching. Look at that. These are great pictures.
All right, catch me in Montana. All right.
For reals. Look at, and this is what I love, where like you have the lighter color, but then you also include like, hey, you don't want to make it completely stain, like it's going to attract all the stains. So this is great. And out here in Arizona, you burn your ass every time. So I refuse to buy vehicles with black interior. Just it's not happening. So awesome.
That ass be on fire. You jump in there.
Yeah. So this is great. And then I'm going to assume this is the case, but I'm just going to ask it. Like, are you going to integrate? Because I did have to buy a vehicle recently for my son. He just turned 18. I didn't have to, but that was his 18th birthday present. And he's learning to drive. I got a text from my husband today that they almost got in a car accident today. I was like, oh, that's great. Okay.
You got to learn.
I was like, he definitely needs to go get. So I can. Okay, that just popped another idea in my head. But like integrating Carfax, because like that was a really cool thing about the small dealer I went to. He actually had the Carfax already integrated, so it's like boom, you could see what the vehicle's history was.
Yeah, we're definitely looking into certain integrations, things like Carfax, KBB, like so that a lot of that stuff is already there. It's easier to see. We're still building it out, but yeah, that's definitely in there.
That's in the features log. And then the other thing I was thinking in my head, I was like, oh, you should definitely need to find a driving school for your kid.
Yeah.
and like having a space for them to advertise in here so that
Nice.
it makes sense, right? It's like the one-stop shop. So
Mhm.
super. I'm so excited for you. I mean, this is really like being at the precipice of the way people are going to have to buy. Because,
Yeah. I
you know,
agree.
I had this conversation with Pace Morby on Sunday where it's like, he's like, affordability is a problem across the board for everything. It's
Yes.
not just houses, it's cars, it's your
Truly.
utilities, it's your everything.
Telling me.
And so
It's
like,
legit expensive.
yeah, so like cutting down, yeah, and making things more accessible for them and being able to sell in a non-traditional way is the way for the next at least 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and so many people are getting behind on things, and like people's credit. Like I know so many people's credit that are just getting wrecked right now.
Yeah,
Like it's going to take so much time for these people to build back up.
yeah,
And that's the thing where it's like the systems that we've been dependent on just don't really work. And interest rates, we can't wait for somebody to spend and blow through a bunch of money, cause inflation to go up crazy, and then say we can't lower interest rates because of spending that we can't even control, just so I can afford to buy a house or just so I can afford to buy a car because I haven't made more money, but everything's more expensive. It's like system that's been around for so long. We have to learn how to unwind it, go behind the curtain, change things so that we can do it ourselves. And it's like that's the power of creative finance. And that's the thing I love about like these kinds of strategies and creating spaces where people can come in and learn how to really just do this stuff themselves, because we need to. There's no other real way to just afford normal basic living if we don't say F you to the system and do it ourselves. You know what I mean?
yeah. Amen. Awesome.
It's just I see this as like it's just going to take off so well.
Yeah.
Like what a missing piece of the auto industry, truly the boat industry, any vehicle industry, like you said, anything that moves. But I'm just,
what's been your favorite transaction so far, Mike?
Favorite transaction.
Any that stand out? Like you
said, so I mean, my favorite transaction, I'd probably say we did a Porsche Taycan. It was funny because the seller, the reason why he wanted to do it because he went and bought a Porsche Taycan Turbo as well. So he was like, all right, he wanted to get rid of this one. And we ended up doing that deal. Funny enough, we had one particular buyer that it went to first. And like in a very short period of time, he had to repossess it. But then he ended up redoing it to a different buyer. That's been great since then. But the seller himself, like, man, we just cool. You know what I'm saying? And just kind of seeing like he taking somebody, because he's not in any of our creative communities. He's not in any of that stuff. I actually wanted to buy it myself from him. But at that time, he was a little bit skeptical about it and gave him all the resources and everything. But cool, I still needed a different car. So I ended up buying another car on seller finance in a different space. But he ended up hitting me back up and was like, hey, so about this taking over payments thing, can you help me understand that a little bit more? We talked a little bit more in depth. I let him know I didn't want any more, but I can get him somebody else. And seeing somebody go from dark to light, that kind of stuff to me is just like, all right, cool. Now he understands he can do things completely differently. He doesn't have to do things the traditional way. Like those kind of deals, it ain't necessarily like the car that's attached to it, but it's more like somebody not believing that you can do this to be like, oh, damn, I wish I knew this the whole time. Why did I know this?
Hey, and now you got a PML, huh?
You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, PML. By the way, you guys should connect, you and Steven, Mr. Musician over here too, by the way.
Yeah. What do you play? Yeah, give me a little bit of music background. I'm curious.
Yeah, so when I was young, I actually played a lot of instruments. I don't necessarily practice too many instruments now. I'm more on the production side. So I do a lot of like production for like house music, hip hop, R&B, things like that. I work with a few artists, whether it's nationally or locally and things like that.
Oh, that's so good. Love it. Same thing. I grew up, I played a ton of different instruments. I don't really practice all the instruments anymore. It was more of just like a fun thing to know how to do at the time. Now, primarily for production purposes, I primarily just focus on piano and then guitar, but everything shifted more towards piano because having the keys like
open doors.
The keys, you can literally do anything you want.
Keys open doors, dog.
Yeah.
All right, Miss Clarinet player, 6th grade. I got put on JV as a 6th grader. Okay, all right.
That hot cross buns.
Hey.
That's hilarious.
Right on. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Before we let you go, like if somebody wants to do deals with you, they want you to be their TC. What if their opportunity isn't necessarily on sellerfinance.io right now? How would they get a hold of you?
Yep. Shoot me a DM, facebook.com/Mike Will Close It or Instagram @Mike Will Close It. You can also reach our team. Join the free Facebook community that's dedicated to SubTo cars. That's facebook.com/group/top method. You can learn a whole lot about these strategies. You can connect with other people. You can do deals. And if you want to get your deal evaluated or just have a question about a deal, hit me up.
Right on. And so for all of you out there, it's now on the screen. It's also in the comments, you guys, and then we'll make sure we'll put it in the show notes. It's been a pleasure, Mike. And again, I will be pushing hard to figure out when can I put all these I got properties I need to sell to the end consumer. So I need this website up and running, man.
Say less, say less.
Hey. Okay, cool. Well, we will definitely catch you next time on the podcast. So what do you got going this week?
Goodness gracious. Well, we were going to be closing a deal that you're selling to me, but that is now getting pushed to next week. So now the rest of the week is fully cleared and open for Ingryd Hernandez's 33rd birthday. She's turning 33, you guys. We're celebrating all week long into the weekend. Make sure you drop a comment and wish her a happy birthday.
Well, I'm on carnivore right now, so it's steaks on steaks with butter.
She loves some Wagyu A5.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
Okay, let's go. All right.
Oh.
Thank you so much, Mike. And catch us here next week, like every week, Wednesday, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Arizona time. And we will have your top experts in their business and budding businesses like Mr. Mike Davis. And so we'll catch you on the next one.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Y'all.
Thank you, Mike.
All right.